Hey, ooh, that's so optimistic. We're almost ready, but not quite. Okay. How's this? Is this working? Hey, this is looking pretty good. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for waiting. My name is Quintin Smith. I work under the name Quinns. And today I want to talk about why my company, People Make Games, that I run with friends, is doing journalism differently. They are resizing this as I'm talking. Hey, they're making the font bigger. This is amazing. I can walk backwards. Cool. So, my nickname is Quinns. I've been writing about games since I was 16 years old. I'm now 39, which means I've been telling people about cool games they can play for 23 years, which makes me old, or, I prefer this word, a survivor. And one of my jobs is doing documentaries for a channel called People Make Games. And I'm here today to talk about why, a few years ago, I stopped saying that I do documentaries about games. I instead talk about why I do documentaries about play. Okay? That seems like a small difference, right? I don't think it's small at all. I think that instead of everybody here seeing that they work in the field of games, and instead coming to understand that you work in the field of play, it could be transformative for your game design. Also, I think if everyone in the games industry, media, influencers, players, adopt this change as well, our art form would never be the same again. You see, the games industry, all of us, every player, designer, media members, for as long as all of us have been alive, we have been trapped in this box where we think that the art we practice and the culture we love is just this thing we call games, by which we mean games you can buy from publishers. We also seem to believe that our whole culture was born about 50 years ago. I'm here to tell you today that that way of thinking is insane, okay? Over the next 45 minutes, I want to show you everything we have to gain, everything that I have gained from breaking out of that box, because all the word games does is enable people, mostly the audience of People Make Games, to say the following sentence. Well, that's not games. That's not games I play. That's not the games industry that I work in. And every time this sentence has shown up, as it has done over and over and over again in my career, it's been proven, sometimes it takes a few years, sometimes it takes a decade, it's been proven meaningless. This way of thinking causes harm, it kills creativity, it means we close our minds off when we should be opening them up. And this incredibly short-sighted and self-defeated way of thinking is not our fault. Okay? It's a very natural consequence of the birth of video games, because video games have, for the first time, made games the defining cultural medium of a generation. You know, it's no longer movies, it's no longer music, and video games have made all forms of play that came beforehand look historic and irrelevant. So this trap that we've ended up in, anyone would have ended up in it. But this is what our games industry, the art form of play, really looks like, according to me. And the good news is that if today I can convince you that this is the art form that you work in, you are going to be walking out of this room after my talk knowing that the art form you're part of, this play industry, is more beautiful and full of ideas and potential than you thought it was when you walked into this room. I'm going to be saying some very big things today. So if you don't know who I am, let me quickly try and muster some credibility by talking you through my career. But basically, for 23 years, my passion has been finding the games that the rest of the games press miss. Okay, I've just realized I might be standing in. Where should I stand so everybody can see this? This is good? Okay, whatever. So I spent the first 10 years of my career writing about video games for places like Rock, Paper, Shotgun, and Edge, and Wired. And if I was known for anything as a video game journalist, it was finding the games from small teams and indie designers that were too weird for the rest of the games press, right? And I would scream about them, telling not just my audience, but the rest of games media that these weird games were important and that they had to care about them if they wanted to be cool and relevant. And my enthusiasms would often get these teams their first bit of publicity and then, okay, sorry, can we shrink the font on this ever so slightly so that I could, because sometimes there's a lot of text on these. That would be amazing, thank you. But then the rest of the games press would be like, oh, these games are good, actually. And I would be like, I know! Sorry, is it possible to make the text smaller? Maybe? Oh, nice, the helpful cursor has shown up. Hey, that's beautiful, thank you so much. Maybe just, perfect, thank you. So after 10 years of working in video games, my friend and I spotted this gap in the market. Board games and card games were this whole scene that was amazing, and nobody was doing professional coverage of that space. We also wanted to experiment with making videos, so we started this YouTube channel called Shut Up and Sit Down that brought like professional games coverage that we learned from video games to board games. And long story short, this worked out really well, and I spent the next 10 years, after being a video game critic, going to being a tabletop critic. And those skills transferred perfectly, right? Like, it was started to make me think, like, well, what on earth is the difference between these two design disciplines? And there isn't one. It's all just play. And listen, these days, I know that you folks, game designers, enjoy card games and board games and take lots of influences from that scene. That is partially because of us. We told people in the video game space that they had to care about board games and card games if they wanted to be cool and relevant. And like that, when I started Shut Up and Sit Down with my friend in 2011, my friend and I leaving the multi-billion-dollar video game industry to do board games sounded completely insane. It made us sound like absolute freaks. We were making videos about deck builder games in 2011. Nobody knew what the fuck we were talking about. It wouldn't be until 2016 that the video game space learned about deck builders from the game Slay the Spire. That's 6 years of being pretty lonely, being like, deck builders are good. And the games industry's like, I don't know. Anyway, so we did this for 10 years. And now, once again, I've gotten bored. People know about board games and card games, so I have to move on again, right? I have to find other games that aren't getting the attention they deserve. So now I have this YouTube channel called Quinns Quest, which is all about tabletop role-playing games. Another sector of the games industry where the games are up here and the quality of the coverage isn't quite there. And I'm not talking about Dungeons and Dragons here. I'm talking about all the indie designers and artists and editors making books like Impossible Landscapes, okay? Now, there's going to be a variety of tests which you are designed to fail in this talk. But can I have a show of hands? Who here has heard of the game Impossible Landscapes? That's about 3, 4, 5 people. How many of you know about that game because of me? 2 people. OK, so we have 3 people in this room full of people who work in the video games industry. Impossible Landscapes is a role-playing game book, and I think it is one of the greatest works of game design of the last 5 years. And none of you have heard of this game. So why aren't we talking about Impossible Landscapes? Why are we abandoning that designer? You're going to see this slide a lot in this talk, but we'll come to it later again. Finally, some of you might know from my other job where I make documentaries for a channel called People Make Games. And for someone like me who's interested in the weirdest corners of the games industry, this is the greatest job in the world. It's how I've ended up in the Arizona desert role-playing that I'm living out the apocalypse. These people who put this event together are not gamers. They're part of the Burning Man community. But this is a game, right? I've also been interviewing outsider artists who generate their art with a deck of cards. Again, they don't think of themselves as part of the games industry, but this is a game. I connect with the immersive scene. London in England is the kind of global hub of immersive theater design. That's how I ended up in a Starship simulator. Which is, again, not what you'd think of as part of the games industry, but this is more like immersive theater meets games, but the games industry isn't covering it. I also made a video about the World Championship of Competitive Microsoft Excel. I love this video. There are like high-class tournaments where people who work for accountancy firms compete in Excel, like it's sports, and that's great. Long story short, I am an absolute freak on People Make Games, and I am allowed to follow all of my interests. It also means that the homepage of People Make Games, this looks like nowhere else in the games industry, right? And very occasionally we have audience members who say, well, that video, it's weird. I'm enjoying this video People Make Games has done, even though that's not a game. And it's like, it is. It is. So what I'd like to talk to you about today is why I believe that the games industry would be a better place if more of the games press followed our success and became absolute freaks. The games industry needs to be freakier. If I'm not being silly when I say that question, what I mean is all of us, the games industry, the games media, need to become more broad-minded because we have so much to game. Like when I worked in the board game sector, I would tell video game designers, I would straight up tell them, you have to play board games because there is so much to steal, right? And it's true. So you can interpret this sentence like however you want, that you could be inspired by other things, you could play other things, but also there's just so much to steal. Even though people make games, this broad-minded space has our audience saying that that's not a game, like when I cover sports, but that's fine. So this is when my audience kept saying like these aren't games. That's when I started saying, okay, well I guess I'm not making documentaries about games. I'm making videos about play, which is a crazy choice I've made because it sounds like I make content about sex, which to be fair, sometimes I do. We did a video for People Make Games where I talked to the VR chat community about how they have sex with one another using VR. This is, on the one hand, ridiculous. On the other hand, it's really groundbreaking tech. I love this story. Definitely go and look at this video. Now, I'm sure lots of you in this audience right now who are broad-minded are thinking to yourself, okay, yes, Quinns, I agree. The world would be a better place if more gamers tried more kinds of play and more designers took inspiration from elsewhere, but I already think this way, you know? I'm sure for lots of people in this audience, you don't just play video games. You play tabletop games. You take inspiration from sports and game shows. And if that's you, fantastic. But unfortunately, for those of you in the audience who agree with me already, this kind of broad-mindedness is only going to get you so far if you do it alone. You see, without the whole games industry recontextualizing what games are, you're not going to have players who are as willing to try something new. And you're not going to be able to take inspiration from all the games and designers that you don't know exist because the games media don't tell you about them, okay? So let me give you a case study now to prove that, like, what you have to gain by telling you about a game that I'm pretty sure nobody in this room has heard of, okay? And even more crazy, it's the game that I'm looking forward to the most, okay? It's not GTA 6, The Witcher 4, Big Walk, Gen Atlas. It is, well, I'll describe it for you. In February 2027, next year, I am going to take a train to Belgium, to a chateau known as the Chateau de Delem, for a role-playing game where I will be dressed up and in character for 3 days. It's a LARP, okay? The LARP that I will be doing is set in 1972, and a bunch of billionaires are throwing a party in this chateau themed around surrealism and Salvador Dali. So there's going to be a lot of billionaires, specifically 27 role players, pretending to be billionaires in crazy costumes. And the characters that these 27 people are playing are philanthropists. They create charitable foundations. Sometimes they launder dirty money. But that's not who I am going to be role-playing. I will be one of the 7 players serving them foods and drink. I will be dressed in black tie with 6 other people feeding these billionaires in Belgium in a chateau. And then on the first evening, I'm going to draw a weapon. Us 7 waitstaff are all going to draw guns and announce that this is a hostage situation. And this is the LARP. It is a 3-day LARP called the Icarus Foundation, which is about an incredibly tense hostage situation. 7 vigilantes holding 27 billionaires hostage. And this isn't a new game. They actually ran it twice at the start of this year. Next year, they're going to run again. I, as a hostage taker, will have permission to abuse my fellow players. In fact, it will partially be my job, because the 27 players who signed up to be billionaires have done that because they want to be scared. They want to be put in a pressure cooker. They want to be abused. And as hostage takers, we're going to be scared as well. We're going to discover which beliefs our characters will stick to, which beliefs we will sacrifice, whether we'll stay working together as a team when, I'm sure, everything will go wrong. And when I say I'm going to be in character for 3 days, I'm not going to decide who my character is. None of us are. Because the people who design games like this know that they work better if everyone's character is pre-written. Because the game is designed so that all of us together, billionaires, hostage takers, represent a spiderweb of emotional and romantic entanglements, of disagreements in politics and philosophies, so that from the moment the game starts, before I've even drawn my gun, there will be surprises and problems and dilemmas for every single player. I'm expecting to be panicking for 3 days straight, including when I'm just serving booze. So, while all players know how the game begins, we all know we're signing up to do this hostage situation. None of us know how it's going to end. I'm expecting it to be excruciatingly tense and totally magic. So, if you were to ask me what my most anticipated game is, it's this. It's the Icarus Foundation. Now, let me see if I was correct. How many of you have heard of this game? Show of hands. Oh no, 2 people at the back. Okay, well, just 2 of you. I'll take that. So, yeah, nobody knows about my favorite upgaming game. Something is wrong here. Now, let me be a bit more generous. So this is part of a school of design called Nordic LARP. Can I get a show of hands? How many people have heard of this? Okay, yeah, a decent amount of you. And for the record, for those of you who don't know, there are Nordic LARPs in Spain. It's called this because it originated in Scandinavia. But still, in a room full of game developers, not many people have even heard of the genre that this is part of. For the rest of you, let me quickly teach you what Nordic LARP is. So a lot of you know what LARP is, I'm sure. It's where you're role-playing, but you're on your feet and in character. The most common LARPs, which stands for live action roleplay, are what are called festival LARPs, and that's where hundreds or thousands of people go into a forest and do something that's often fantasy. It's kind of like the D&D of the LARP world. Nordic LARP, I have heard this referred to as an emotional extreme sport, which I really like. Nordic LARPs can be about anything, but they're generally one-off events that are all about immersion. There's often no winning or losing, but if you end up sat in a corner, literally crying about a romantic interest played by someone you hadn't met 2 days ago, you're probably winning. Now, I cannot overstate how exciting some of the design work that is being done by the Nordic LARP community. Some of the game designers set their games on ships because that's an easy, like instantaneous, immersive environment. What's fucking crazy, though? Some of these ships are sailed by the players. Like, there is no ship crew. The players, if you're a pirate, you are literally running the sails and running around and cooking the food. Lots of Nordic LARP events have catering where the chefs are player characters. So the chefs are in character. There's a LARP in Italy I was thinking about going to that is set in a literal nuclear fallout bunker. LARPs often involve players role-playing flirtation or kissing, or even simulating sex, or even having real sex with other consenting players you've just met, which can lead to very complicated feelings when the game ends. There are Nordic LARPs that are also just very beautiful, that are set like in the queer community and the AIDS crisis in New York City in the 1980s. There are non-verbal LARPs designed by a wonderful designer called Nina Essendrop, where you role-play things like emigration for 2 hours without anyone speaking. I have played 2 of these games, and they will break your heart. One popular thing right now in the Nordic LARP community, which has been around for decades, are LARPs created by a designer called Katrine Wind, and these are known as partner LARPs. And what these are LARPs that are designed around you sign up with someone else. And what this enables is you can go to really complicated emotional places and play really complicated characters because you have another player you trust and who you can do homework with, basically, before the LARP begins. And that leads to cool designs like there's a Katrine game called Demon, which is set in the universe of His Dark Materials. And if you know that fantasy world, in his Dark Materials, the rule is that humans have souls that exist outside of their bodies that are the shape of animals. And in Demon, everyone signs up as a character and that character's demon. So you see half the people in this picture are dressed as animals. But what that means is you and your partner are playing the same character, but you have interiority, and the stupid snake or bird that is with you is saying what you are thinking all the time, which is especially funny if you might fancy another player, and then your animal and their animal start being really creepy, and you're like, oh god, this is the worst. But what this is basically Disco Elysium, right? Where your emotions talk to you, but that emotion is a player. How cool is that? Shit, I love this stuff. So something I have been saying for easily 10 years is the most interesting work that is happening in games that nobody is talking about is the Nordic LARP scene. Work that combines role-playing games with immersive theater, with a new style of emotional play where players regularly go to places so dark it takes them weeks to recover. The video game industry simply is not exploring this stuff. So again, why aren't we talking about these games? Why are we abandoning these designers? And with Nordic LARP, you might say to me, okay, Quinns, nobody's talking about these games because they're niche. Only weird humans want to play games like that. That's bollocks. I'm old enough that I remember people saying that about video games in the early 90s. People said that about board games in 2010. People like great games. I'm plugged into this scene now. These games are great. The reason we aren't talking about these games is because the games press, and to a lesser extent players and designers, doesn't recognize it as the games industry. It's because we are stuck in this bubble. Let's move on to a completely different example of the games press narrow-mindedness when it comes to what counts as a game. I dropped my microphone. So, something you may have seen on People Make Games. 4 years ago, People Make Games did an investigation into Roblox. I'm sure all of you know Roblox, right? It's a games hosting platform and social network and suite of design tools where you can make games and merch for other Roblox players. It's kind of like my first game development platform. And it's primarily aimed at kids. And the last stats we have is that it has 381 million monthly active users. This year, Roblox Corporation is expected to make $6 billion in revenue. It's one of the biggest companies in games. If the defining media of my childhood was Sesame Street, today, for kids, it's Roblox. Now, People Make Games was the first media outlet to look into Roblox really seriously, spurred on by one fact that I found out where I was like, that can't be right. Which is that you know how Steam takes 30% of the sale of every video game? Roblox takes 75%. So I thought, they cannot be treating children that way, can they? Yes, they are. So I looked into this company, and it was like lifting up a stone in a garden and seeing 100 nasty little insects. Roblox makes it hard to figure out how much money you've made in real life. Roblox encourages kids to start making games on Roblox with misleading implications about how easy it is to make money. As a result of our reporting, they have changed the copywriting on the website, so it no longer tells kids, you can make serious cash. Roblox now, for years, has had kids working for other kids with no contracts and no oversight, meaning kids are working with zero regard for child safety. Roblox markets cosmetics to kids costing hundreds or thousands of US dollars. Roblox games have gambling mechanics, which gambling psychologists now are becoming more aware of, that the younger your brain is when you engage with gambling mechanics, the more likely you are as an adult to develop gambling addictions. Roblox has famously terrible moderation that is outsourced overseas, and the entire Roblox community agrees it is not fit for purpose, leading to countless sexual predators. During our investigation into Roblox, we were told by a source that they knew a developer. They had receipts that this Roblox developer, not working for Roblox, but making Roblox games, was a sexual predator. Her and her friends could not get Roblox to take action. After our documentary told her story, Roblox still didn't take action. And about 6 months after our story, that developer was found with a child in their car crossing state lines in America, and he is now in prison. Now, this Roblox story was a huge scoop for People Make Games. Our documentary into Roblox has passed about 9 million views. My reporting was picked up by The Guardian, The New York Times, the BBC, just about every game site that exists. This is the kind of success that journalists dream of. So I should feel good, right? I feel really, really angry because this stuff wasn't hidden. It was right there. I didn't even come to this story early. I came to it years too late. Roblox had been doing everything that we said for years. I just happened to be first. I happened to be interested. I happened to be willing to spend a few days playing these games and talking to Roblox developers. So why was People Make Games first? It's because the rest of the games media or their audience didn't care about Roblox because this weird thing kids were playing, it's not games. It's not part of our games industry. It's like games but for kids. It's like games but weird. We're not going to cover it. Why are we abandoning these game developers? I'm going to do one more example. How many of you guys, show of hands, know about Jubensha? Some of you guys. How many of you guys know about this because of my documentary? All of you. Fucking hell. I really appreciate the support. Thank you very much for watching my stuff. This is, again, all of you folks in this room who are broad-minded. You take inspiration. You can't take inspiration from games you don't know exist. And Jubensha is another example. It's just crazy that we aren't talking about it. So, this is an entire huge genre of games that has been born in the last 10 years in China. And we did a documentary about it. Jubensha translates as script murder. And the short version of this story is that these games gained popularity after a Chinese viral TV game show called Who's the Murderer, which is now like on its 12th season or something. The way that Jubensha works is that 6 people, most commonly in China, 3 female-identifying people and 3 male-identifying people, enter a room to play a boxed game that looks like this. So it's a bit like they're meeting up to play a board game, but there is also a games master. That's what these 2 people are. They're professional games masters. That is their job. And they walk you through the game in a cafe. And it might take and basically, at the start of this game's history, it was all about figuring out which of you was a murderer. So it's a bit like Among Us, if instead of you have 5 minutes of nonsense, it's like you're living out a whole TV show in which you need to find out which of you did a murder. Now, when I say Jubensha is popular, this is a graph from our documentary. The amount of escape rooms in America, in the United States of America, peaked in 2019 at 2,350. The amount of Jubensha cafes in China in 2021 was estimated to be 30,000, right? So these are the cafes where you and your friends might be like, oh, should we go play there's a new Jubensha from our favorite Jubensha designer. Our local cafe has it in stock. Let's go. There's only 3 of us, but maybe us 3 can go as boys, and then we'll meet 3 girls. It's a great way for Gen Z to meet each other. Now, I've played a few of these games because the first English language ones are coming out now as a result of our documentary. You can see them here. You can Google them. You could also look at, you can take a photo of this slide. There's another game called Spy of the Year that I'd really recommend, and another game coming out soon called Fade to Black. Unfortunately, these games are in English, not Spanish, but hopefully in a few years we'll be getting Spanish ones too. But the thing about these games is that the closest, that you have to play them. I've had a really annoying thing with Jubensha where people, when I'm talking about it, think oh, it's kind of like a LARP, it's kind of like a murder mystery. We have that here. No, you don't. The way Jubensha are designed is like a whole new genre of game. The closest thing we have, because they're a puzzle that it takes hours to unpick, so the closest thing we have are games like rich puzzle games, like Curse of the Golden Idol, The Root Trees Are Dead, Return of the Aubergine, but that doesn't work because The mechanic that is interesting in Jubensha is that it's a puzzle that is multiplayer that has a lot of emotional elements in it. So you're not just designing a really complicated puzzle where we're all sat there like doing maths. At least one of the 6 of you is lying because they did the murder. So instead, the way these games are designed is they give each player really emotional reasons why to not share something. Maybe you're in love with another player, and then halfway through the game, you find out they were cheating on you, so now you'll share something you know. You know, I played a wonderful Jubensha where halfway through everything I was saying, I realized my character was partially insane. And so suddenly I was like, wait, if that's not true, then this other thing. And the really cool thing about Jubensha that means we should be paying attention to it is over the years in China, as this genre of games has developed, it's no longer about murder. It's about romance more often. Often there isn't even a murder. Now, it's almost impossible to find pictures of Jubensha in China, so this is not a picture from the Jubensha, but this is an illustration of what it's like. I heard about a Jubensha in China where it's a 6-player game, right? The 6 characters you sit down and play are 3 generations living in the same house that are all couples. 2 of you are playing a mum and a dad. You play the 2 grandparents who live in the house with you, and you play the son and the son's girlfriend. You all live in a house. And then the game is that one day you find out that one of you is cheating on their partner. And that's the game. Go. 4 hours of puzzling and role-playing, and I don't know how this game ends, but I know it's legendary in China because it always ends with all 6 players crying with joy. We have no comparison like that in the Western games industry. And yet, you know, sorry. And it drives me fucking crazy because what do we have when it comes to romance? We have like Stardew Valley or Baldur's Gate 3, getting excited that between all of the resource management, we occasionally get to flirt with an NPC. We are in the Stone Age. We should be freakier. Come on, guys. Now, the thing that's a bummer about Jubensha right now is that China will not translate these games for us. As a result of our documentary, loads of people in America and Europe have reached out to their connections in China saying, like, whoa, can we get these games? And the Chinese designers and publishers have basically said no, because our audience is so small, and China has, what, like 1.2 billion people? It's a breakthrough hit in China. No one's heard about it over here. Also, translating these games is almost impossible. What is happening now that's cool, though, is that so many designers saw my documentary, played a few of these games, and were like, well, shit, we got to have this design. They are making their own games from base principles. So now we have this burgeoning English language Jubensha scene. We had our first English language Jubensha conference this year. So this scene is growing, but that is entirely as a result of my documentary. So why aren't we talking about these games? Why are we abandoning these designers? And again, it's because Jubensha doesn't fit into our tiny box because of what the games industry is. But what makes Jubensha particularly crazy-making is that we have role-playing. It's kind of, if you follow the DNA of Jubensha all the way back, it's basically murder mystery dinner parties. That's inspired the French board game, which inspired the Chinese TV show, which inspired the genre. And yet, and we have escape rooms, and we have role-playing games, and we have murder mystery dinner parties, and yet, the moment something appears that we don't recognize, we're not interested. Which means we never learn from these designers, which means we never get to play these games. So those are some big examples, but I can keep going, and I will for a few more minutes, but I'll get faster. Some other projects that People Make Games has done. Did you know that as of about 4 years ago, governments, the Spanish government, the UK government, American government, NATO, are trying to recruit people from the games industry because they're trying to get their wargaming departments working again. Departments that have been mothballed since the 1980s. Huge story. People Make Games was the first to cover it because of connections I made in the board gaming scene. We have a games press that couldn't care less about the immersive and interactive theater communities, even as those communities are, like, I'm being paid to give this talk to immersive theater people in a few months. They are talking to Nordic LARPers because it's all play, it's all game design, and the games industry is not paying attention to any of this stuff. Instead, what do we have? We have a games media that only ever covers things that it already knows gamers are interested in. We have video game sites that write articles about video games. We have D&D sites that do stories about Dungeons and Dragons. Or we're a Magic the Gathering site. We cover Magic the Gathering. And again, it makes sense that we've ended up here because this is what market forces encourage us to do. Someone who wants to be an influencer is going to try and go viral by making content for the hundreds of thousands of people who play Magic the Gathering. And that's how algorithms work too. Like, oh, you like Dungeons and Dragons, here's some more Dungeons and Dragons content. The biggest problem that People Make Games has is when I ask my team to do stories like this, my team is like, how the fuck are we going to sell it? How do we do the thumbnail? Which is why our Jubensha story has this horrible thumbnail that doesn't even mention the word Jubensha. But we're just trying, you know? But when everyone is thinking like this, it means designers, critics, and players are packed away into separate silos where we fail to take inspiration and joy from the entire art form of play. The way that I think about this, the situation that we are in, is imagine if there was a music industry where musicians not only didn't listen to music made by people in other regions and genres, but where they didn't consider those people musicians, or to give that place another name, hell. That's where the games industry lives right now. We're in hell. The good news is, I think this is changing. The nuclear blast that was the creation of video games that burned out all of our retinas and caused us to lose all perspective, that is fading slowly. The games industry is becoming more broad-minded. In 2010, the board game scene is looking totally dead. Board games are the past. Video games are the future. Oh, no, fuck. Wait, hang on. Board games are good, actually. And board game designers are genius game designers, too. Board games have had a huge resurgence. The scene is now worth 30 billion. At the same time this is happening, video game developers who take inspiration from board games make small games like Slay the Spire, which introduces deck building to the board game scene, or to the video game scene, and Among Us, which is, of course, an adaptation of 1980s party game Werewolf. Who knew that board games could inspire video games? I'll tell you who. Sid Meier. Did you guys know that Civilization is a port of the hex-based war games that were popular in the 1960s and 1970s? Did you know Baldur's Gate is based on D&D, which is... Anyway. Another sign the games industry is becoming more broad-minded. In 2014, everyone said pen and paper role-playing games are dead. Pen and paper role-playing, that's the past. Video games are the... Oh, fuck, hang on. Let's see what happens if we put some voice actors playing D&D on the front page of Twitch. Oh, okay, Critical Role is now outrageously popular and D&D is cool again. Or my favorite stupid example. In 2012, I did a talk where I mentioned how weird it is that the games industry, our games industry, believes it had nothing to do with the games industry, which is what the gambling industry calls itself. Casinos, poker, roulette, they also call themselves gaming. And when I did this talk in 2012, people are like, that's not games, though. That's different. You know, sure, Quinns, online poker is big, but that's not the games industry. Boom! Balatro sells 5 million copies. Boom! What comes out last month? Gamble with Your Friends, a breakout hit currently sitting at 91% positive ratings on Steam. Boom! What happened last week? I was reading a newsletter about how there's now an epidemic of streamers playing blackjack, funded by a Finnish man, Ossi Katola, who made lots of money making websites that let you connect Steam and your Counter-Strike skins to a website so you could gamble with your Counter-Strike skins. There's also stuff about how loot boxes are fucking gambling anyway, but let's move on. There is nothing you can think of in the domain of play where you can't draw a direct line to a great video game. Physical sports like football, that gets us to Rocket League. Dolls houses get us to The Sims and unpacking. The game of tag gets us to Ape Chase, one of the viral success stories of VR headsets. Does this go the other way? Of course. Escape the room video games lead to real-life escape rooms. Walking simulator video games share DNA with immersive theater. Sleep No More. Has anyone heard of Sleep No More? The theater show that sold out in New York City for 14 years. Or my favorite, maddest example of this recently. I love this. So I was at Void Space last month, which is a festival in London for the intersection between game design and immersive theater. And you guys all know like the video game Overcooked. And like games like Papa's Freezeria, where you have timers and you're running between tasks. Someone made that in real life. This is a fake coffee shop. It is a team game where you have to serve coffee by running and going to, like it uses RFID. You have to place a cup. Okay, the way it works, there is RFID codes at the bottom of all the coffee cups. So you have to take the RFID code to get some beans, which somebody has to grind physically. You take that cup to be brewed. The water canister needs to be refilled. There's syrup, there's toppings. This shit, right, is just actually working in a coffee shop. Now, show of hands, who thinks this was fun even though it's basically work? About half of you. This was the most fun I've had in like 4 or 5 months. This was amazing, okay? This is, and again, is it a video game? No. Is it a game? Yes. Someone is going to make this like a playable installation somewhere, and they're going to get rich. But all of this is me looking backwards, right? It's easy for me to seem wise when I'm looking at everything with hindsight. So let me prove my point by predicting the future. Let me point out something that is going to make someone a millionaire, but the video games industry is not paying attention to. Fantasy sports. The fantasy sports market, do people know what this is? It's like you and your friend can draft real athletes, and then if those real athletes perform well, then your team on the app does better. This is huge, especially in America. The industry is worth about $30 billion. That's cool, but you might be like, I don't really see how that could inspire a video game. It already has! It's called Blaseball. Show of hands, who knows about Blaseball? Not enough of you. People say about the Velvet Underground that even though the band, the Velvet Underground, were not very popular, they were not a commercial success. They were like your favorite band's favorite band. They inspired all of this music. That's Blaseball. Blaseball was never super popular, but everyone I know who's a cool game designer was playing it during the pandemic. So if people don't know about this, it basically simulates a fake baseball league, and then you are watching it, and you are like making bets. You are like trying to affect it. But because it's simulated and not a real sport, it got super weird and Lovecraftian. Like the game became 4-dimensional. Like the number of baseball, like the size of the baseball diamond would get bigger and bigger and bigger. It was like catnip for people who liked maths and simulations. And then the fandom was crazy. Like this is all a player is, right? It's a name and some stats, and then the community is like, no, it's not. They're real people. We're going to draw whole teams and do really weird fan fiction and get protective, and it all got a bit toxic, but let's move on. If you want to learn more about Blaseball, I've made some videos on it, but as a proof of concept, it was magical. It also wasn't monetized, but all I'm saying is that the first person to combine fantasy sports betting apps with something like Blaseball and then make something that basically open up fantasy sports betting for the video game audience are going to become a millionaire. And I'm willing to stake my reputation that is going to happen in the next 10 years. In closing, I just want to leave you with what I think is a really exciting thought experiment. And that is, what would the games industry look like? What would it feel like if the front page of a website like IGN didn't just cover video games, if video games were not even at the top of their radar, but covered every single kind of play imaginable. And that meant that all of you, as designers, didn't have to make video games. You could do halfway between a video game and a doll's house, or halfway between a sport and a toy. New kinds of play we couldn't even imagine. Now, I have to be honest here. I told my art designer to mock this up. That was probably a mistake, because he came up with all these headlines himself. So we've got Fearball, which is like Pickleball, but with way more ghosts. New Battle Royale playground shrinks until only one kid remains on the swing. 8.3 million LA actors hired as NPCs for citywide GTA Live experience. If you're reading this, it only gets creepier as you keep going. We can all agree my artist went crazy here. But I can't be angry, because I realize I gave him the job of imagining the future, and that's impossible. But as silly as this slide is, it does hint at what I think the future is, or at least what I want it to be. No hay ninguna nota? That's great. Wait, can we shrink this text? Because I do have more on this slide. This is great, because this is my big ending, and now I just am standing here. Can we just scroll down on the slides? Is there anyone in that room? Yeah, thank you. Can we get a round of applause for the person upstairs? I want the most popular game site in the world to cover not just new video games, but new playgrounds and sports and game shows. Also, the kind of games we don't have words for yet that are halfway between a playground and a video game, or game shows that we can play at venues that exist on our city's high street. I want a doll's house that I can watch with my friends and interact with using a sports betting app. But more than that, I would like to see a games industry that respects itself enough to realize that it has a longer history and more responsibility for the future of joy than any of us in this room had ever imagined. So I, in my career, am going to keep pushing for this future. And I hope I'll see some of you folks by my side pushing for it too. Thank you very much for your time. Cheers. Thank you. We have time for questions. There's a gentleman with his hand up. Ooh.
Hello, thank you. First of all, here, it was an awesome presentation. I think I have taken notes of a lot of things, a lot of games that I want to see. Just wanted to ask a question about the games and play thing. I think even because you were talking about we shouldn't talk only about video games, but I think there is even genres in video gaming that we are not talking about. For example, you talk about romancing games, and we haven't been in the romance gaming thing forever.
Yeah, it drives me crazy.
It's like, for example, one of my favorite videos on the internet is a review of Tokimeki Memorial from Tim Rogers. It's an awesome video.
Oh, yeah.
The 6 hours one. So, okay. But it's awesome. It's like a genre that we don't have here. Some people are surprised when they hear like Deep and Love Space is one of the biggest gaming thing on the world. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, otome games exist. So do you think this is also something that we have to improve about?
Yeah, I think romance is insane. I think I could do a whole talk about romance in games. There's something about us as a society, as Europe and America mostly, where we just don't, like, I don't know, I can only assume it's because we have this horrible thing where, because our games industry was so male-gazy for so long, we have all of this infrastructure that means we are averse to femininity. And it makes sense to me that, like, a lot of our romantic game coverage is coming from the queer community and from queer games, because we have like male presenting people who might be queer, and then they get into the games industry, and then they can make and enjoy romantic games. But we don't have those games targeted at like a traditionally female market, which is romance. And that's just ridiculous because you can see how much we want it. You can see like people being so thirsty for Stardew Valley and Baldur's Gate, and it's like, that's cool, but why do I have to go into dungeons in Baldur's Gate 3? Why can't it just be the flirting? And then the biggest romance game of all time so far, video game, Love and Deep Space, came out of China. And that's a sign of I'm glad someone's doing it, but it shows that something is insanely wrong over here, that we can make horny content and we like it, but we can't make horny games. Why? Like, it's mad. Yeah, but I think, yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, I was also just like a recommendation, but I'm gonna guess you probably heard about it. When you talk about baseball and how it became Lovecraftian, have you heard of the story 17776, or what football will look like in the future?
No, but afterwards, come tell me about it.
Okay.
Do we have time for another question, maybe? One more? One more. We have a... You can come talk to me after the...
Quick question over here, and very simple one. How did you end up discovering these games? Because it seems very out there, but I have no idea other than maybe someone like you to reach over me into YouTube videos, etc. But how did you do it?
How did I'm going to... weirdly, from reading stuff that isn't games related. Because you can't, if the games press isn't covering this, we'll never know about it. So you have to go elsewhere. So this Jubensha, I learned about because I'm interested in Chinese culture. There's too many people. It's like a walled enclosure. So like, I have to go and find newsletters to read about this stuff. So I learned about it from a Chinese culture newsletter. That's how I learned about Jubensha. The Roblox thing is so embarrassing for the games industry. I learned about that from a wonderful newsletter called Garbage Day, which is about internet culture. And the fact that me, a games journalist, had to learn about it from outside the games industry is so embarrassing. But yeah, I think you just have to be... And then Nordic LARP, I learned about from going to a games conference, which had invited two Nordic LARP people to speak. But basically, yeah, you have to just read outside of games. And then you have to develop an eye for like where did I learn about Wasteland Weekend? I can't remember. But you have to develop your nerve endings that when you see something that looks kind of like a game, you have to be like, wait, what are you doing? What is this? Are you having fun? And you have to learn that they're not different to you. But it's a great question. I wish I knew the answer to how to do it better, because then I would do it and make more videos. Do we have time for one more question? Yeah, great, cool. Thank you all so much for coming, by the way.
We have one more.
I was just thanking them in the period.
Okay, so coming from your answer on how to find out about these new ways of playing, many of them that I'm really interested in are related to being in there and being in a place where more people are doing something. But if you live in a village in the middle of Andalusia, how do you prioritize which ones to go if you're not knowledgeable about those fields?
This is a great question, and the Nordic LARP community is currently tearing itself apart because they're so left-wing that they're like, well, we can't make money from this. No one is allowed to make money. And it's like, okay, but what that means is then the only people who will ever do this are the rich people who can afford to do it. Because it's only by making money that you can make it affordable, if you want to do ambitious stuff. What I will say, Nordic, honestly, it's so hard for even me to find out, but all I would say is find someone who knows about Nordic LARP and then ask what's happening in Spain. There might not be, I don't know if there's a LARP in Andalusia, but I know that they tend to happen in Spanish castles that are available for rent. So I feel like Andalusia might have a few of those. Yeah. So if that's the case, the other way to, no, wait, I'm going to do a video on this. Keep an eye on Quinns Quest, my YouTube channel, because I'm going to do a video this year on LARPs you can play at home. And that is a really, really, really good way to get into it. It's free as well. The games are made available for free online. But yeah, it's really hard. We're in this really difficult period where I do not have an easy answer for you because there's no media covering this thing. You just got to find someone maybe online, in Discord maybe, who knows about Nordic LARP, and then be like, I'm poor and want to do this. And they are left-wing enough that they'll be like, we must help you. We must tell you everything you need to know. But I wish you luck.
Lovely, thanks.
Okay. I got to give this room up. So thank you so much. I'll be waiting right outside if anyone wants to talk to me, or sometimes at conventions people want photos. Hopefully none of you, all of you are too cool for that. But if anyone does want a photo, then I will be right outside. Thank you guys so much.